Hey everyone, welcome to our quick little screencast on Italy and Italian unification. Okay, so we're going to start out first about before like the 1820s, before the 1800s. Italy is not unified. There are a lot of issues that Italy is having. There are it's like it's mostly divided. So you've got like princes and families that are ruling over specific areas, okay, where these people are not unified. So you've got, places like Sardinia, they don't consider themselves Italian, they consider themselves Sardinians. Venice, they consider themselves Venetians, okay? So there's this, because of this division, it allows stronger countries to come in and take over different areas. So you think about northern Italy before unification, Austria had a lot of control over those areas. The Habsburgs ruled areas, and the Habsburg Empire, they ruled areas. The French, they took over some areas. So really, Italy was very divided. And because of this sense of nationalism that we talked about before, that's kind of making its way through Europe because of Napoleon. You've got nationalist groups that are going to start popping up in Italy and that want the unification of Italy. Some groups are going to want a republic form of government, while others are going to want a more conservative government, so more of a constitutional monarchy. Okay, and the constitutional monarchists are the ones who kind of win out. They're the ones that are able to kind of control Italy after their unification. Okay. So you've got these nationalist groups. There are these secret societies that are forming throughout Italy, and their main goal, their one goal, is to get rid of Austria. Okay, and the one you could call him the leader of these nationalist groups that are forming is this guy Giuseppe Mazzini, and he's known as the Heart because he sets up this kind of, he doesn't set it up, but he spreads this kind of romantic republicanism. Okay, like this romantic idea that we're going to rise up and we're going to push out our oppressors, and it's very valiant and it's very glamorous and glorious, and he's very adamant and passionate about pushing out the Austrians and becoming a unified Italy for a republican form of government. Okay, he creates this group called Young Italy, and he creates this movement, like this Italian Risorgimento, okay, this Italian nationalist movement that he creates. And it's very, I mean, he's not very successful in pushing out Austrians, or unifying areas, but he's very successful in spreading the idea of it. So that's kind of why he's known as the Heart, okay? So this is kind of where the idea of unification starts, okay, with these secret societies that Mazzini kind of helps create. And then you have this man, his name is Camillo de Cavour, okay? He's known as the Brain because he's the one that actually is going to pretty much unite Italy, okay? He's the guy that's going to push Austria out. He becomes the prime minister of Sardinia. So Sardinia has a prince, and this prince names Cavour the prime minister as the prime minister. And what he wants to do is he's going to make Sardinia kind of a model of for what other areas in Italy want to become. You know, like for progress and industrialism, and they're going to have a fair government, a constitutional monarchy is what he wants. And he, just like Bismarck, kind of follows this idea of realpolitik, where the ends kind of justify the means. He will do whatever it takes in order to unify Italy under a constitutional monarchy. Okay? And he's first going to do this with the Crimean War. So the Crimean War, from like 1855. It doesn't last very long, 1855 to 1856. Okay, what he's going to do is he's going to ally on the side of France and England. So during the Crimean War, France and England are fighting against Russia. He allies himself with France and England. He sends troops, and this is his way of kind of creating an international name for himself. Okay, because at the end of the Crimean War, you've got France and England and Russia at the peace talks, and and Cavour is invited. And at these peace talks is when Cavour really makes a name for himself. Like other European countries kind of notice his politics and notice his passion, especially Napoleon III. Okay, and with what Cavour does with this relationship with Napoleon III is he kind of turns it to his advantage, and he creates this secret pact. Now, if you think about France, and Austria are not allies. Okay, they do not like each other, and so what Cavour does is he creates this secret pact known as the Pact of 1858. It happens in Plombières, France, and what he convinces Napoleon III to do is side with Sardinia, where he's from in Italy. He gets Napoleon to side with Sardinia if they ever go to war with Austria. So if Cavour ever, or if the prince ever declares war on Austria, the Prince of Sardinia, then France will jump in and they will help. Okay, so the next step for Cavour is obviously to provoke war with Austria. So it's exactly what he does, and he declares war on Austria to try and push out the Austrians, and France comes to their aid. So because of this alliance, they're able to defeat the Austrians. And what actually happens in Italy, and it kind of freaks France, it freaks Napoleon III out, is that you've got all these revolts, like these passionate, romantic Republicans start having these revolts all across northern Italy, and it kind of freaks out Napoleon III. He does not want like all of Italy to unite and become too powerful, because that way he's going to lose whatever kind of influence or whatever kind of control he may have with this alliance. So he doesn't necessarily want that to happen. He gets a little nervous, and what he does is he goes. It's very dramatic. He goes around Cavour's back, and he creates this treaty with Austria without inviting Cavour. And this treaty is known as the Treaty of Villafranca. And what Napoleon does is he makes peace with Austria, and he actually lets Austria keep Venetia, okay, which is a part of Italy. It's an area in Italy, and he says, all right, you know what, you can keep Venetia, and Sardinia can get Lombardy, and that's the end of the agreement. Okay, so Cavour looks at this, and it kind of that's it for Cavour. He ends this alliance with France that he's had, and he focuses more internally towards unifying the rest of Italy. Okay, so you have that deception that occurs with Napoleon III, which kind of pits northern Italy against France. Now, because we have our deception in northern Italy, we look towards the south, and towards the south, you've got another nationalist. This is the third guy that you're going to have to know, Giuseppe Garibaldi. He's known as the Sword because he is pretty much responsible for uniting southern Italy. So he has this famous group called the Red Shirts, and this army of about 1,000 people, and they all wear red shirts, and they go in. He's able to overthrow the rulers in Sicily and Naples, and pretty much unite southern Italy. And they are making Giuseppe Garibaldi is a Republican. Okay, he wants a Republican form of government, and he's making his way through southern Italy up towards the north. Okay, up towards Rome. And then you've got Cavour in the north, who's watching this happen, who's a monarchist, who wants a constitutional monarchy, and he sees what Garibaldi is doing. So we have some kind of we're afraid of conflict. So pretty much Cavour and his troops meet Giuseppe Garibaldi and his army in the middle. And what occurs is that nationalism kind of wins out. Garibaldi says, it's more important for Italy to be unified than it is for us to have a republican government. Okay, we're going to unify under a constitutional monarchy. Garibaldi, very, very diplomatically and very valiantly, he actually gives up. He gives southern Italy to Cavour, and what the Italians do is they. Oops, I can't go forward. There we go. We make Victor Emmanuel II king. He was the Prince of Sardinia. Okay, now he is king of all of Italy. Garibaldi turns over Sicily and Naples to Victor Emmanuel. Southern Italy actually votes, and they approve Victor Emmanuel as their king in 1861. And then they are able to work towards unification as a whole united country. The only thing that happens really is that there's a lot of corruption. There are a lot of issues within Italy, north and south. They've got very different economies. The north is much more industrialized. The south is much more agrarian. Okay, so they're into farming much more, and there's just like this conflict, and there's this corruption within the government that kind of stalls the unification of Italy. Okay. In 1866, you've got the rest of Austria that's pushed out of Italy because of the Austro-Prussian War, which is a connection to Bismarck if you think about it. And then in 1870, with the Franco-Prussian War, France, if you remember, they lose miserably. Okay, and because of this war, they need their troops that are in Rome, and so they they remove their troops from Rome, and because of that, Italy can move in. They make Rome their capital, and for the first time since the Roman Empire, you have Italy that's fully united. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean that corruption has gone away and that the North and South are getting along famously, because they're not. And actually, still even today, the North and South are pretty. They're not best friends. Okay, and it's because of the division, the educational division and the economic division between the two. Okay, but on paper, in 1870, we are completely unified, and that's pretty much it for Italy. Short and sweet. So we will go over Italy on Monday, and I will see you guys then. Have a great weekend.